Welcome back. Today we're going to think about how to make a scatter plot in Plotly. It's going to look a lot like making a line chart, and so much of this will look familiar. But we're going to explore how we get markers instead of lines and why we might choose to make a scatter plot. Typically, you would use a scatter plot to compare two values and see how two different measurements are correlated with one another. There's lots of different things that we could check their correlation. I think a common thing that people think about is maybe stock market returns. It's very easy to find information about this, like a quick Google search led me here, where I can see the behavior of the Dow Jones average and the S&P 500. And you can see that even though there's these two different indices which track different aspects of the stock market, they seem to be fairly well correlated. We can eyeball that just by seeing how the behavior of these lines work. However, we could directly check the correlation just by making a scatter plot. So let's go ahead and do that. Conveniently on this website, you can just download the CSV. So go ahead and do that. And then when you go to downloads, I have this chart.csv. If I come back to Marimo and I'm in the file system, last time we saw that I could click upload file and then navigate to the file that I want, but you can also just drag and drop here and then we'll have access to this chart.csv. If I click on that, we can see that this is structured date, Dow Jones Industrial Average, and S&P 500. And so we have these three columns that we can import. So let's go ahead and do that. We import Marimo as MO. Last time that we imported data, we used NumPy. So let's do the same thing. We're going to import NumPy as NP, and then we're going to import Plotly subplots. And I guess I should have said from Plotly subplots, import make subplots. All right, nope, didn't need all that information. We can run that, then we can import the data. And so last time we saw that we could import all the data, assign it to a variable, and then unpack that variable. This time, let's just do it all at once. So we'll say dates, Dow Jones, and S&P. How about that? Equals mp.gen from text. And so I'll hit return here to autocomplete. We want the data file that I have here. And so one thing we could do is we could write down chart.csv, but something else I'll say is that I can say copy path and then just paste that path directly into here. And this gave me the full path to this file. So exactly how Marimo is seeing this, that it goes into this directory, modal volumes. Then this is the instance that we're dealing with in chart.csv. So this is like exactly where this is located. The so-called working directory is also the same as this directory that we're seeing here. And so we don't necessarily have to include all of this. We can just have chart.csv if we want, but this will also work. So I'll include it here. We said we needed to have a delimiter, and this is a CSV file, so we expect it to be comma separated. And then we need to unpack the rows so that we get back columns instead of rows. So we set that equal to true. And at this point, we should then end up with Dow Jones, dates, and S&P as variables when we run the cell. So we can verify that by looking at the variable explorer. And we again see that they start with NaN values. And so we should probably skip the first row. So we'll say skip header equals 1. And now we don't have that NaN value. Again, that was coming from the fact that if I look at this data, the first row is really these titles. So we'll skip those. It turns out we don't strictly need to do that. Like Plotly would handle these NaN values, these not a number values, but it's cleaner to just not include them, and you'll run into less errors in your life probably if you just end up skipping them. So now we have all this data. Then we need to make a figure. So let's make this scatter plot. we can go fig equals make subplots. That's going to give us the figure object. Then we use a method, which is add scatter, to add to this. Now, we need to check the correlation between two indices. So here we can say x equals Dow Jones and y equals S&P. And that's really all we need to create this scatter plot. So then we can show the result, fig.show. Let's see what we get. There is the scatter plot. It's okay. It's sort of like got this squiggly line. Maybe we don't really want the line. Again, Plotly tries to make a choice about the best way to present this data. For me, I don't want a line. We want markers. We want a proper scatter plot. And so let's just say mode equals markers. And when I run that, now I have a series of dots that show this correlation. All right, so then let's go ahead and make a few changes to make this sort of well-formed and easy to understand. So we have, let's see, big.update layout. Let's make the template the simple white template that I particularly like. You can look at the other templates that Plotly has. That'll clean this up. We need to adjust some axes. So fig.update x-axis. Let's give this a title. And this is the Dow Jones price. And then fig.update y-axis title. This is the S and P. Maybe we don't need spaces between these S&P. 500 price. And now we know how to make a scatter plot in Plotly.